what is it that you want to do to bring what is it that you want to bring to the students of Broward County that can help, you know, the school board members and the students there? What is it that you want to bring to Broward County?
One of the things that I've noticed that really lacks in our public education system is the money. And that's in terms of how we're programming our education system, how our magnet programs are actually doing, where is the innovation in the education. And a lot of that has faltered throughout the years just because we're not prioritizing our student education as a whole. And it really comes down to money, sadly. But when we're looking at it, we're 45th in the nation in terms of per pupil spending. And for me, that means that we just need to find a way to revamp our education system. And we can by simply, as a state, actually going ahead and creating a grant program for a lot of the magnet programs so they can continue to fund and allocate necessary resources for these programs. And on top of it, to expand a lot of the things that we're lacking in terms of the humanities, music, art. There's so many things that, you know, we neglect in our education system that we're asking the private industries to come in and they're not having the best interest of our community. Other than that, and as well as with the grant programs for the magnet programs in the schools, I think it'd be in the best interest of the state to provide a teacher's stipend. Teachers are currently going out of their way to pay for a lot of the necessary resources they need for their classroom environment. And I just feel like it's a shame knowing that we're finally giving them the raise they deserve and they still have to go out of pocket to, you know, really teach the material in a way that's adequate for everybody. So, you know, even small things like this can really help change the narrative about our education system, and it gives us an edge against the charter school system, because the biggest issues currently is the fact that we're providing more into one over the other, and if anything it needs to be equal. And that's really why money matters in this conversation, especially the oversight in our school system, because if we're just allocating all of our funds outside of the public educational institutions, all we're really doing is lining the pockets of big corporations and people who have no specific interest in the community, just the monetization of it.
Okay, so if someone said, like, how is it that you've come to the conclusion that more money is being given to charter schools than in the public schools? How would you explain that?
So the best way that I can say it is, when we're looking at the charter schools now, we have pop-up charter schools and we have charter schools that are privately owned. A lot of these, and these are statistics that are brand new, if you look, that there's actually a 70% close rate within our charter school system. And that's because a lot of these places, either one, they're not meeting their charter, two, they're not actually adequately providing the education needed as an alternative, and that's specifically what charter schools are, an alternative to our public school education system. And when a lot of these things aren't meeting the criteria, they fall short. So on top of the 70%, consider that 70% of the charter schools that have closed, all of that money could have gone back into our public schools and do exactly what we're hoping to do. If there's something we're lacking, let's reinvest, let's reallocate, say what you want, call it what you need to, but let's find the money and put it where it's necessary instead of taking it out of the taxpayers' pockets. On top of that, I mean, we have to consider also the fact that when we're talking about charter schools, we're not just talking about, you know, choice. We're talking about what is, you know, equitable. Is this choice necessary? And on top of it, is the charter school system working for me and my kids? And that's the biggest questions we have to ask. And money sadly comes into play into all of this, because right now the state of Florida is really using the voucher program to go ahead and fund the charter school system. And they've made it a state mandate that now they have to be equally funded. And a lot of those schools are still up and running, beginner schools. So a lot of them aren't even meeting the capacity. They don't need that funding specifically, again, because it can go back into our public education institutions.